Welcome everybody to October's meeting of the Astronomical Society of Frankston, and it's a shame we couldn't put on better weather for you tonight, but we'll go ahead regardless of that. For the new faces here, my name's Peter Skilton, and feel free to come up and say hello. The meeting is split into two with the tea break in the middle. And tonight, Peter Lowe will be giving a presentation on telescopes in about 10-15 minutes' time. And we'll break for the tea break and come back for the information segments after that. After the tea break, I'll also be going through the results of the August survey that was handed out. So I'll show you some of that and some details. You feel free to ask questions as we go through that after the tea break. Now, I would ask if you are a member and you have your name tag, please wear it. It helps newer members get to mix in. If you haven't picked up your name tag yet, then John Cleverdon will arrange it for you. He's down in the corner with his hand in the air. There doesn't appear to be a raffle prize tonight because Dave is not here, so we'll skip the raffle tonight. Congratulations to the following members for reaching the following milestones. We have Ros Berrystone has reached 3 years, Val Greg Walton, 3 years. Jakob Bukowski has just joined us. Stephanie Hampton has joined us. Brian Keefe and Val Roberts have joined us. And there's at least one of those new people, in inverted commas, here tonight, so welcome. Make yourselves at home. The idea and question box is here, which will go around. And while that's also going around, what I'll do is also pass around, because there's a pen here, the viewing night roster. So if you can come to the Briars public night on first Friday evening, we'd like to see you there. Also, there's an order form here if you're interested in getting Astronomy 2003 this year, which is this year's equivalent of that one for 2002. We don't actually have one to show you yet. They're due to turn up certainly within the next few weeks, and it will definitely be here at next month's meeting. If you are interested, please put your name on one of the lines here. If you want, say, 2 copies, then put your name on 2 lines, because we only get a certain number of those each year, and it's first come, first served. In addition, there is the solar eclipse coming up, and those who are on email would have been aware that we're getting hold of some eclipse viewing glasses, which this is a photocopy of eclipse viewing glasses, but they're not real ones.
So don't try and use those.
So don't try and use those ones. But what they are is aluminised mylar, aluminised polyester, which is has been measured to be safe from the far infrared to the extreme UV, and we'll be selling those for $5 to members. They haven't turned up yet, but we've got in with Monash University to order some of those, and I already have about 27 names down so far, and we're only ordering in 50. So if you're interested, I'll also hand around the order form for that, and if you wish to put your name down on that as well, by all means, and they'll be ready for picking up next meeting or any meeting of the Society. So I'll hand all those things around in one go and hand them back to the front when you're finished. Whoa! There's the nice one. Now, during the tea break, while Ian reassembles the laser pointer from the component parts, including the circuit board, during the tea break the library will be open as usual with Andrew and Jane looking after it. Feel free to go up and have a look at them, and By means borrow a book and look at the books. Yes. So you can also look at the librarians as well. Now, since we last met, the Society has only had one public viewing night, which was on October the 4th, and we had lots of fog on that evening, as well as frogs. There was plenty of frog calls at the time, so we had fog and frogs. Since we met also, another large minor planet has been discovered, which is a real dog of a thing we have to pronounce, and it's a shame they couldn't have picked something better. But we have a couple of pictures of it. I'll just put the cap on this thing. These are the discovery photographs that it was taken. July 5th this year, so in other words, they've been sitting on it for quite some time to confirm it. And over a period of only about 30 minutes or so, 40 minutes, they tracked it using ground-based telescopes and then confirmed it later on with the Hubble Space Telescope and resolved it was in Ophiuchus at the time, and that's what they resolved it as. It's getting on for about a quarter further away than Pluto is, and from that image there, they can quite confidently say that that's what it looks like.
That's a name stand. What's that name? I mean, what's that derivation of the name? It's a funny name.
It is a very funny name, Quawa, and I have some information on it which I will now read out. It's actually half the size of Pluto. Its name comes from the Native American Tongva tribe, which were a tribe in the Los Angeles basin. Why Los Angeles? Well, they discovered it using one of the telescopes that was used from there. And according to the legend, Quawa came down from heaven, and after reducing chaos to order, laid out the world on the back of 7 giants. He then created the lower animals and then mankind. Now that is the discoverer's provisional name for it. At the moment it's currently known as 2002 AW197.
Excuse me, Ben, did you get your page one?
Yes. Right, so that's the latest one, and indeed it lends quite a bit of credence to the view that Pluto is probably a member of what's known as the Kuiper Belt, which is a large population of protoplanetary bodies like large asteroids, and Pluto just happens to be one of them. So that was Quawa. Is there anything to help? Feel free to look at those afterwards if you wish to. Also, since we last met as well, there have been a couple of aurorae. I noticed Marty's here tonight. Did you have any pictures to show, or shall I show these? Yeah. Okay. These were taken by Marty a couple of weeks ago. From his backyard. That's from Somerville, backyard of Somerville, so you can definitely see the glow of the aurora across the sky there in the early morning. And another one on the same one. It's also there, and you'll notice the rays that we've managed to capture, given that that's from translating into a JPEG file and me copying out onto a fairly low quality colour render as well. So it's pretty impressive. Say again? Yes, yes. In fact, there's been large sunspots near the equator of the sun, which is the best possibility that we can have for having material ejected and thrown along the ecliptic to hit the Earth. Now, of course, there's also another large sunspot supposedly around to the opposite side of the sun, which is coming around, which could very well have been this one, so around October the 14th or thereabouts, wherever the rotation rate is of the sun, we might expect it to sweep around if there's anything left of it. And of course, if it's covered in cloud at the time, well, the cloud cover, then obviously we're not going to see it, but that's fairly typical for aurorae. If the sunspots last long enough, you'll get them coming around the second time.
Yeah, I started off.
Yeah, you started off.
I didn't get a call.
Now we'll do a post-mortem to see where that one ended up in that case.
What's it exposed on? What sort of film?
Like to tell us what the exposure of the film was, Martin?
It's a 400 speed film. Exposure was about 45 seconds.
So 400 ASA and 45 seconds in the sky. And you can definitely see that with your eye as well.
Oh, yeah, huge.
Yep. Very huge. Now, since we also last met, the Society had a telescope learning day on the 12th of August, and although I wasn't able to get there, I believe it was a great success as well. And that's one of these opportunities where you can meet with other members and their telescopes, bring along your own instruments and have a look through them, and the members will show you how best to use yours. I don't think we've had any astronomy classes here since a while. Next one next year. Right, okay. Any other member observations of note? There was a report on email going around about someone in Melbourne who had a very large bright meteor seen on the 27th of September, where they heard a sonic boom from it. Anyone hear that or see that from the Melbourne suburbs? No, all inside watching the TV. Any other member observations of that?
Oh no, just the bright meteor I saw on the public night and then a week later.
Else?
Just going to ask, how long did that roll up?
Just like an hour.
Looking details.
Well, we have a couple of meteor showers coming up in the near future. Did you want to say anything about the Orionids and Leonids other than to mention that they're coming up before the next meeting? The Orionids is a meteor shower that has maximum around the 22nd of October, so that's not very far from now. They're typically around 20 per hour as seen, zenithal hourly rate. And the Leonids meteor shower this year, which won't be anywhere as good as last year, at least from our location on the Earth, is around November the 17th. And if you want a good view of that, you've got to go to the United States, unfortunately, where they're I think, due to get a very good showing. We'll probably only get about 50 an hour or thereabouts. So if you missed it last year, a bit late.
Michael Jordan spoke to him last week, and the predictions have actually changed. We're only predicting about 1,600 an hour in the United States now, as compared to, we had 6,000 as it was last year in Alice Springs. So the rates were originally predicted about 15,000 this year, going down about 1,600. And apart from the fact that there's also a full moon, so visible meteors will also halve that as well. So you'll probably be lucky to see 800 an hour in the States at the moment. So Australia's probably a good place to be, any place I suppose. And it's November the 19th so that the peak's going to be.
The 19th?
Yeah.
That's a Tuesday night, yes. If anybody's interested in joining into the Aurora telephone network, I have some details on it here, which you can feel free to come and collect one during the tea break. I'll just leave those out of the front there with the what's-ons and everything. Feel free to come and collect one, and if you are interested in joining in, just follow the instructions and join on the list of about 25, 26 of us. Remember, next meeting is the annual general meeting, so it's two meetings in one. There's about the first 20 minutes is the annual general meeting, and then the remainder of it will be a guest speaker coming, which will be Dr. Chris Fluke from Swinburne University, talking on just three numbers, an introduction to modern cosmology. You're desperate for a laptop, are you?
Yeah, another one. With a CD-ROM reader on it.
Lucky I turned up, eh?
Yeah, come on down, Russell. Come on down.
I only bought it for John, so...
Peter is going to be very reliant on the technology for his talk tonight. Okay, while we're waiting on them, when it comes to the AGM, of course, the call for nominations of members that wish to come onto committee. And John has got some nomination forms at the front down there next to the what's on. If you're interested in coming onto committee and helping to spend the Society's money and be involved in the decision process, now's a good time to actually put your nomination forms in, because they have to be received before 7 days before the annual general meeting, received by the Secretary. So if you are interested in coming onto committee, and I would strongly recommend it, particularly amongst the ladies amongst us, to help get a 50-50 balance. Current society membership is 42% female and 58% male, so we're getting pretty close to 50-50. So we would certainly welcome extra on the committee as well. Okay, well, are we ready to go? Yeah? We're having some technical difficulties. Looks like we've also got some night sky to hand around again. Feel free to take one if you're interested. Yes, you ready? Yeah. Okay, well what I'll do is while they're getting ready, while they're doing that, I'll start going through some of the survey stuff. I'll just give you a bit of background on that. The breakdown of society membership by types of members. You all see that okay? You don't need the lights down? Lights down a little bit. So you can pretty much see from this pie chart, it tries to divide up the number of members by different classifications. So over here on this side of the pie, we actually have families and family pensioners. So you can see that slab there is essentially families in the society. This slab here is single members who aren't family memberships. So as you see, the number that are single versus the number that are family about the same. So we've got pretty much the same proportion. Number of students is actually small at the moment, and the number of newsletter members is also fairly small. So mostly families, mostly singles. Just give you a bit of background on the families. Now from the survey, what we also had was how many years have you actually been a member in terms of the returns from the survey. And 1 year or less is this chart, 3 or less is that one, 10 or less is this one, and over 10 years. So slightly more representation between the 3 and the 10-year mark, but we've got a good spread across the years, not as if it's been dominated by those that have been in society a very long time, or by those that have been in here only for a very short while. So it was a good spread. Next question that was asked of all the members was how many instruments do they own, whether that's binoculars or telescopes. The most popular number is actually 2 per member, but there's a fairly good spread there. You'll notice one person doesn't own anything who filled in the survey. There are a few with 1, a few with 3 to 5, and a smaller number with more than 10. And no one actually found the question too difficult to answer. However, I can't necessarily say that about all the questions as they came up. We did get a few abstentions. So most own 2. That might be 2 telescopes or 2 binoculars or 1 of each. Now another question that was asked was how frequently do you visit the briars? And in terms of the number of respondents, over on the left-hand side is we never visit the briars. Once a year, 4 times a year, once a month, once a week, and abstain. Found the question too hard. Most people somewhere between once a month and once a quarter visiting the briars. And if you've never been to the briars, I would wholeheartedly encourage you to come along, whether it's one of the social activities one weekend or one of the organised members' nights, because you'll find they're a fairly friendly crowd. And when we go through some more of the details after the tea break of the responses, you'll see the sense of community of the society is one of the strengths that most people actually brought up. Now the next question was how satisfied are you with the monthly meeting format, which is this meeting today. And it ranges on the left-hand side from spot on, room for improvement, satisfactory, below par, unsatisfactory, or again abstaining from the question. And most people thought either it's spot on or room for improvement, and indeed there's always room for improvement, which is good to see. So that was pretty good, but nevertheless we could probably have some minor tinkering, if nothing else, so as to try other things. Another question that was asked in the survey was, should there be a telescope at every meeting? Those of you that have been in the society for a while would be aware that we used to have a telescope virtually every meeting come up for observing, and either members would bring their own or the society one would be here. The responses were mostly people said sometimes we ought to have a telescope. A fairly significant proportion said always bring it along, regardless. That's whether or not it ever actually got out under the stars. It could just simply be to show people what a telescope is like. And one person found the question too hard. Should there be a telescope at every meeting, and abstained from the answer. Did I explain what the telescope is? The next one was your views on the number of outside speakers, because outside speakers typically incur some sort of a cost, whether it's travel and accommodation at the extreme, or speakers' fees, or at the very least, even if they're willing to give their time, we would normally give a gift of some sort to the speaker, which can be typically around the $50 mark. So having extra external speakers obviously raises the running costs of the society. Now, shown here could be a lot less, could be a little less, and no one actually said that. Someone said could be a lot more. Most said could be a little more. So from that, I think this year we've only had, it'll be 2, possibly 3 external speakers. So what that's probably saying is maybe we should aim for 4 per year or 5 per year. So far, our external speakers have also been free. Except maybe for next month, we might have to give them a bit of a present as recompense for coming all the way down here. Next one was, how long should the monthly meeting go for overall? We didn't have anyone abstain from that, so I think the question was clear enough. Because we begin typically at 8 o'clock, we didn't have anyone who never attended it. 1 to 2 hours is that box, 2 to 2.5 hours, which 2 to 2.5 hours takes it up to about 10:30. 1 to 2 hours typically means go until about tea break or after tea break. And that box over on the side there is, well, we don't care. We'll be here irrespective of how long it is, or maybe we won't be here irrespective of how long it is. So what that is actually showing me is that the most popular time is between 10 and 10:30 to finish the meetings. Those that wish to leave early, what that then means, if they're leaving after the tea break or thereabouts, that we ought to default to having the most interesting topic or the syllabus item or the main topic of the evening, preferably before the tea break if we can, unless the speaker actually requests otherwise for reasons such as they can't get here on time. So that was good to actually find that out. How satisfied are you with the length of the tea breaks, which occur halfway through the meeting from the survey? This goes from over on the left-hand side, could be a lot shorter, to over on the right-hand side, could be a lot longer. The one in the middle says spot on, and the left slide is a little bit shorter and a little bit longer. So we have a surprising spread of opinions here. Could be a bit shorter. In fact, the weight tends to be more on the shorter side, to a bit longer. Now that's suggesting to me that maybe we have 2 different populations here. One that likes to socialise and chinwag out at tea break and would like that much longer, and the other population that really is here to be entertained and doesn't wish to waste time on that sort of thing, and just wishes to find out a bit more about astronomy or be told about astronomy. Or maybe they wish to get home earlier as well.
It could be one like a coffee drink, but the other like tea drink.
Could be. So maybe that's also saying that we might have to think about possibly some activity over the tea break as well, other than just the social side of things. So if anyone has any suggestions on that, feel free to come forward and see me. That doesn't necessarily have to be an astronomy-related activity either.
Dancing girl.
Dancing.
I second that.
Okay, well, if you're ready to go, I'll continue on the rest after tea break. Yeah.
More about
You haven't got a signal.
I found, while I was going to be putting this together, I found this photo which I thought was rather interesting. And Ian Sullivan and John and Russell, I'm not allowed to answer. Does anyone want to put their hand up as to what that is? Sorry? The Great Melbourne Telescope, yeah. So that's, I don't recall the date that was on it, but that was the telescope out with the, I presume the roof rolled off. And Melbourne in the background. And,
Tell me, where did you see this? Where'd you get it?
it'll come. It's, I got it off the net. Yeah. It was off, it's off a British site. It was off a British site.
I haven't seen that picture.
You wouldn't leave the South Yarra telescope, would you? I like the little fireplace, obviously, they weren't worried about seeing. Right. Peter asked me some time back to put together a talk on the history of telescope design rather than telescope making. And, so I said, okay, I'll do that. Telescope design or optical design, like a lot of technical designs, is that getting in the way? On the floor. On the floor under the table. Goes through a series of phases. They often start off as curiosities, and in the case of optics, they certainly started off as curiosities. They then start going through an art phase, or maybe a hobby phase. Eventually, we start to see a bit of technology comes in, and we get into the magic art, or the black magic phase. And then we see a bit of commercialisation. Telescopes has not been any different and has gone through that phase precisely. So let's have a look at them that way, looking at the curiosity phase. Interestingly enough, the first reference to telescopes goes back to the mid-1200s. And although we all know that Galileo invented the telescope, that's like a lot of inventions. He officially invented the telescope. The first references to optical devices, as I said, were in about the 1280s. Two brothers in the mid-1507, the Digges brothers, who were out of the UK, wrote a paper, I guess you'd call it, a monograph, on an instrument that had a lens and a mirror. First cabinet optic, I guess. But it was put together in effectively a magic pamphlet. And so this one, while it's recognised as a reference, is not recognised as a telescope because it talks about the device being able to read the minds of your enemy and being able to look into the future and that type of thing. But it does talk about lenses and mirrors. The first official instrumentation was put together by this, I'm not sure it was a Dutchman. In 1608, we had Hans Lippershey, who put together a patent application for a telescope. The application was refused because the information on it was common knowledge, and so they didn't feel it was worth patenting. So even though he'd actually decided to look for a patent, it was already common knowledge amongst the spectacle manufacturers. But he did go away and start making binoculars. It's rather interesting that the first real instruments were binoculars, and he made a fortune on it. In fact, he sold 2 pairs of binoculars to the city that he applied for the application, for the patent application.
That was going to be opera glasses, was that?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I believe in that,
Yeah. At this stage, the extremely early versions of telescope, and the definition telescope comes in here, often they were using a magnifying glass, and they were not using what we regard as an eyepiece. So they were using their eye as an eyepiece and using the magnifying glass, which you could do. Anyone that's would like to have a go, pull the eyepiece out of the telescope. Make sure you don't poke your eye into the focuser. But if you actually put your eye near the focal plane, you can use your eye as an eyepiece. I can tell you that it produces a pretty hopeless image, but you can do it. In 1609, Giovanni, I think it was, Del Porta published a letter to his cousin and put this drawing in with a description of a telescope, and he did actually describe the principles of the telescope.
Were those wiggles on it?
Yeah. So this is all, as I say, it's all very curiosity stuff. It's not. Nobody's actually said this is a device that can be used. Lewishey, who is, I guess, is regarded as the person who invented the telescope, was merely applying for an application, for a patent application, on common knowledge anyway. We then started getting into what I call the art form stage, which is where we've gone from curiosity into where there's a bit of knowledge. Now, Galileo, as I said, built the first official telescope. Now, the reason that Galileo stands out is that he's the first person that we know of who actually applied scientific principles to go out and figure out how the thing worked and built the telescope according to the design. Prior to that, it was people playing with lenses and eyepieces off glasses. You could actually go down and buy magnifying glasses and things down in the markets. And Galileo got hold of some of these types of lenses and actually studied the instrument. And this actually, I've got it there, is the first application of scientific instruments in where he actually designed the instrument and then went out and did scientific work with an instrument. And in fact, that's Galileo's legacy, is establishing scientific methodology. He understood how the lens worked in a very crude sense, that he understood that the glass could bend the light ray, but he didn't necessarily understand how the telescope worked. Kepler then went away and actually put together a mathematical study of the telescopes, and he was the first person to discover the difference between a terrestrial telescope and an astronomical telescope, where there's an erector lens put in. And in fact, prior to that, he'd asked the question, like from the 13th century to here, this 300 years, why hadn't someone actually put a telescope together as a device? And no one really knows, but I suspect that the real issue is that because with an astronomical telescope, the image is upside down, nobody thought it was worthwhile. It was only when someone put an erector lens in it that it suddenly went, I can see through that. The difference between the two was discovered, I guess, by Kepler. Interestingly enough, Kepler didn't actually build one. The time he did this study was about 1620, which is 10 years after Galileo. he didn't actually go ahead and build one. Schneider built one in 1630 and surprisingly discovered that the image was much brighter and the field of view was much wider than the terrestrial scope, which is a typical Galilean scope. The Galilean scopes were quite crude, and while Galileo was extremely good at building his particular scopes, his instruments were much better than anybody else's. And for something like 10 to 12 years, he was the only person who could actually see things through his telescope. He showed other people that it was too blurry, and they wouldn't believe it. It was only when instruments got better that they realised that his instruments were actually that much better. Now, in those days, glassmaking was very much an art. People did not know really what glass was, and lens making was pretty crude too. It was a very hit and miss thing. There were no real formulas for glass. There were no standard ways of making things, and the people that actually made glass, it was all done again with a bit of black magic. So the lenses that people like Galileo and that had were extremely crude. First of all, they were dark green because the glass that was available in those days had a lot of iron in it, and the lenses that Galileo had didn't actually allow a lot of light through. And the other thing was that they were full of faults, they were full of bubble. And so the actual lenses blurred quite a lot. They suffered heavily from spherical and chromatic aberration. Now Galileo, as I said, didn't understand the principles of optics. He understood the principles of the telescope. He didn't know how to make a lens that gave a good optical performance. So he basically got two magnifying glasses. And if you've ever tried that, you'll see the spherical aberration and the chromatic aberration is pretty hopeless. In order to get around that, given that that was the technology of the day, you can improve the performance of the lens by just making its focal ratio much longer. The spherical aberration and the chromatic aberration go down as the focal ratio gets longer. So we went away from this, which is a sort of Galilean type instrument, to something like this, where I think this was a 40-foot instrument. And what they did was they basically had the same sort of lens at one end, and the erector lens or the eyepiece at the other. And they could get a reasonable view by just making it that much longer. So these things had a focal ratio of something like f150. You can imagine, first of all, the field of view was pitifully small. Galileo could see about a half a moon. These things had fields of view of maybe 10 minutes of arc, which would show you a reasonable sized crater on the moon. Yeah. So they're really not looking at very much. Then they got even longer. This is 150 foot. Now the objective at that end is something of the order of about 50mm refractor. So you can see that the instruments were a bit limited, and of course the tracking was a real art.
So whose telescope is this? Do you know?
This is his name, I can't remember now. So these are two instruments out of UK. I should have brought my notes with me.
Sure it wasn't a Heale, is it? Yeah.
These things ultimately hit a limit, and we had to go get rid of the structure in between, and they ended up with just the lens stuck up on the pole. So there's the objective lens, and a nice long string so you knew where things were, and your eyepiece, and the observer just sort of ran around. And for the day, instruments, and there were a lot of reasonable discoveries made, but they were made with effectively planets and very bright objects, because the only thing you could see would be planets, the moon, that type of thing.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Those objective lenses, were they double convex?
No.
Planar convex, were they?
They were usually planar convex. They were usually curved on one surface and flat on the other. Although Galileo actually had double convex.
Yeah, that's right.
So we've got to the point now where things were starting to get a bit better. Those sort of instruments, in fact, worked, but didn't work very well. But we did start to see some developments come along. 1757, John Doland invented the achromat, and what he did was he hand-matched lenses. This is quite a common process, I guess, when you can't produce things accurately, and it's interesting that Schmidt-Cassegrains today are put together this way, where they generate lots of mirrors, they generate lots of lenses, and they match one to the other until they get some that work. And that's exactly what he did. He got hold of a whole series of lenses that were made from different glass melts, and he just fitted one against the other and measured the chromatic aberration and found that it went down. He found that the type of glass you used controlled the aberration, and also the type of curvatures that you had controlled the aberration. And that if you match the curvatures on the lens, that you also control the spherical aberration. Now, glass melting in those days was definitely a fine art, and as a glassmaker myself, I can tell you that some of the concoctions that they used to put together for glass making was pretty weird. It really did consist of so much sand, so much dolomite, so much pig's blood and all this sort of thing, and then you burn it for 3 days and you got a glass. They really didn't understand what glass was. However, there were some common glass types that were starting to appear, the glasses that melt at very low temperatures, the flints and what we see now as crystal glass, that type of thing, very lead-based glasses, were starting to appear. They melt at quite low temperatures, so they were easy to make. But the advantage of the flint, things like the flints, is that they gave you consistency. Now, people don't often think about Michael Faraday as somebody that's associated with telescopes. It's usually associated with electricity and studies of static electricity. But in fact, Michael Faraday got involved in all sorts of things. And he actually spent about 10 years making thousands and thousands and thousands of samples of glass. And every one of those samples is still available in his laboratory. It's all turned into a museum now, but he just, in a very systematic, scientific way, controlled the composition of his melts and really discovered glass making. He discovered, first of all, that you don't just throw all things together, that they have to be blended properly. He discovered that you can get better glass if you make the glass, then grind it all up and remelt it. So remelt lenses became possible. The other thing he discovered was that the type of glass that you've got depended on the atmosphere. And so he started melting in furnaces that had controlled atmosphere. All methods that are used today, but at the time were unknown. Now, he put all of that together, and one of the things that he discovered in his blending was that you could get rid of all this green colour. That the colour you got depended on the composition of the materials that you put into it. And you could put colorants in to make coloured glass, and you could put decolorizers in to make it clear. The sort of glass that you get in your windows, the normal window glass, is green. Although it looks clear, if you look at it very closely, it's actually green, and it has decolorizers in it to take out odd colours, and the green is because there's iron put in there to stabilise it.
Excuse me, Peter.
Yeah?
You say about the invention of the achromatic objective by John Dolan. Was there any theoretical reasoning that went into discovering the achromatic, or was it just pure fluke? He was playing around.
He was just
and thought,
experimenting.
"Oh, this seems to work."
Yeah, no, he was trying to make a better lens,
Yeah.
and he thought, I wonder if I put them together. He just played around with combinations and come up with a better result.
That's
But what he did was he proved that if you got the right combination of lens and the right combination of materials, you got a better result. And that triggered other people to start looking a bit closer. And the things that had to be put onto a more scientific footing were the glass making side of it and the glass grinding side of it. You can imagine at that time glass grinding wasn't the carbon cerium oxide type grinding. It was basically sand and granite. The big thing that Michael Faraday did was because he put glass making onto a scientific footing, it meant now people could make glass and be fairly confident of the consistency of what they were getting. And as a result, we started to get large flint discs. And the biggest that they could make at that time was about 25 centimetre. Although by the time you got into the end of the 19th century and into the 20th century, you started to get very large objectives, and the biggest, I think, was the 40-inch. We then got into commercialisation. Now, the advantage of being able to produce consistent glass and produce consistent lenses meant that now you could sell a product. And a number of companies got going. The American ones were basically associated with the military, as everything seems to be. So you had Albert Clark, who was quite famous for telescope making, but he also made a lot of spy glasses for the military. Swazi here used to make binoculars again for the military. I think he's part of the Zeiss. I'm not too sure here, but I think Carl Steinheil is actually one of the founders of the Zeiss organisation. Grubb still going in Ireland, and they've gone into large reflectors. Interestingly enough, I worked for Pilkington. Interestingly enough, Pilkington never got into glass. They made glass, but they never got into telescope making. Although Chance Pilkington used to supply a lot of those people with blanks. Now the problem, at this stage, we'd hit a technical limit. The glass now was pretty good quality. The instrument manufacture was pretty good. The problem that we struck was that we still have a limited field of view, and we still have very high focal ratio instruments. So we've still got big, long telescopes. If you look at the 40-inch York, I mean, that's about still an F50 or something like that. So we'd hit the point where the instruments were now not up to the technology that was possible. We had to start developing something else. And the reflector was the next thing. Reflectors had been around for a while at this stage, but they were basically had not been pursued because the refractors were better instruments. So we'll have a look at the reflectors. The first concave mirror that made images was by Zucchi in the 17th century. What he had was a little convex mirror that you could hold up to your head, and it threw an image on the back of the eye. But it showed that a little mirror could produce an image. Now, unlike the refractors, the theory of reflectors was put down before they were built. In the refractors way, they were played with for hundreds of years before someone actually sat down and analysed them. So Gregory actually laid down the theory of how reflectors work. He published in 1667 and in 1668. Newton built one. And the instrument itself, if you go to the British Museum, you can see it. It's about this big. And quite well. It caused quite a sensation when it was presented to the Royal Society. It didn't have a secondary mirror. Most people assume that Newton produced the Newtonian telescope, but he just produced a little reflector, and it had a little sort of sighter along the tube. Gregory actually added in what we regard as a secondary. Now, mirrors were still pretty rough in those days. They were not making glass blanks, glass flats, and they had no way of aluminizing or mirrorizing. So the main mirror on this was a piece of metal that had been polished, and the secondary was the same. It didn't work very well. About 8 or 9 years later, Draper actually put in a prism. Now, we could make prisms pretty well in those days, so a total reflection prism improved the performance outside. And that was more or less the standard instrument for quite a while. Now, the big advantage with the reflector is that you can get lower focal ratios, and that means you can get wider fields of view. So all of a sudden, we were now starting to get instruments that could show wider fields of view, see the whole moon. They're naturally achromatic, so the chromatic aberration is gone. But they do suffer from spherical aberration, coma, and astigmatism. Now, coma is where the image of the star distorts as you go out from the centre of the field, and it goes off in like a little fan shape. And astigmatism is where the focus varies along the optical axis, so you see like sort of a crossed focus. A different set of aberrations from refractors, but still problems. Again, the solution to spherical aberration is to go for long focal ratios. So they didn't quite go for the f100s, but they still had to go for f10, f20, something like that. And in fact, I can remember when I was a boy that an f10 reflector was regarded as a norm.
So these, the mirror that you invented then, was that just a spherical?
Yeah.
Oh, so it wasn't actually a parabol?
No.
That stage?
No, because they had no way of knowing how to produce it.
Yeah.
And I think it was only a 1 inch or 2 inch, it's only tiny. They discovered that, well, basically they knew that they could change the surface shape of the mirror, or they could run combinations of mirrors and lenses, but the theory of those days wasn't good enough to allow them to figure out how to do that. So basically, telescopes were long focal length telescopes. Cassegrain tried to get around this by producing a folded Cassegrain design. In fact, at the telescope learning day the other day, there was a Cassegrain there. The problem he had at that stage was, again, the technology for making mirrors or making particular shapes, particularly hyperboidal shapes, wasn't really very good. And so, although Cassegrain invented the telescope, sometime before anyone built one. The thing that held them back was the engineering of the mounts. You have to be able to take these things and point them accurately. And they had the problem with the refractors, and the thing that killed the refractor was the fact that they got so big, so long, the mounting technology couldn't handle it. I put these 2 shots up. This is a telescope, it's a 1 metre telescope that's only recently been reconstructed, and it's John Herschel's telescope. It had a speculum mirror. It had tilted optics. The observer stood there and looked down along the tube. And the tube, so the mirror doesn't actually align with the tube, it's actually tilted a little bit. And this is one of these, use your eye or a selection of magnifying glasses to have a look. And Sir John Herschel would stand up there, and he had his, one of his servants that would be down here with a pile of ropes, and they'd be pulling this thing, trying to keep it on track. And it worked quite well. It was the best instrument in the world in its day. The problem with speculum mirrors is you've got to take them out and repolish them every now and again, and that means there's a danger of losing the figure, and generally a lot of trouble. This instrument here is actually named after his father. This is the Sir William Herschel telescope, which has only really recently come online. And I put it there just to show the change in mounting technology that's gone on. And you really do have to go to this type of technology to be able to point these sorts of instruments. So the problem you had in those days were metal mirrors and mounting technology. Silvering and later aluminizing was invented, and actually I've got some papers at home which are descriptions of the aluminizing process from the Second World War, and they're still marked as top secret. I assume that they've been released by now, but it's quite interesting to see that aluminizing was still a top secret process even in the Second World War. Now the big thing about aluminizing is that it meant that you could produce smaller instruments that would perform just as good as a 1 metre speculum mirror, a metal mirror. So you didn't have to have the big mirrors, and the other thing was you didn't have to keep repolishing them. So the refiguring didn't have to occur. Now the other thing that was occurring in the mid-1900s was photography. The very first object to be photographed, in fact, I think the first of the chemical photography objects was the moon. But one of the things that photography did was it captured the actual image, but it required the mount to be tracked, and it required you to be able to look at wider fields. So they had to start looking, designers had to start looking at how could we make a telescope that allowed you to look at a bigger area of sky, didn't have lots of aberrations because they still were suffering from these aberrations, but could track in such a way that they could build up an image. Now this has pushed telescope design in 2 directions. The first one is the Sir William Herschel type design, which is large mirrors. And in order to get large mirrors, spin casting has become a norm. In spin casting, what you do is you have a glass furnace which you fill up with glass, you get the whole thing molten, you start the furnace spinning. As you spin, the thing produces a curve, and you spin the thing for days on end, and you slowly cool it down, and you produce a mirror. The final figuring has to be done, but by spin casting, you take a mirror that would take a decade to make, and you can do it inside a couple of years. Multi-mirror designs are coming along. You can see the MMT telescope here, and there's a mirror there, mirror there. So they put several mirrors together, and computer technology allows them to operate these things as a single instrument, or as if it was a single instrument. So we see these combination telescopes. The other thing that started to come along is the idea of having lots of these, but connect them together as if they're all one telescope. And whichever one wins, I don't know yet, but that's the type of direction that the professionals are going in. The other direction we saw was the mirror lens combinations. That maybe by using a mirror we can collect more light, but by using a lens we can correct all these aberrations. And so we started seeing, first of all, the very first mirror lens combination was the Schmidt camera. And what Schmidt did was that he recognised that if he put a lens, a correcting lens, in front of the mirror, he could correct this spherical aberration. If he put the lens at the right place, at the centre of curvature, then he would still end up with a wide field of view, but he'd still end up with a wide field of view, but he would also correct out the spherical aberration. And that was the big jump forward with the Schmidt camera. The problem that he had with that was that the focal point was in the middle of the instrument, And so it was good for photography, but hopeless if you wanted to put an eyepiece on. The other was that the construction of very deep mirrors, F1, F2 mirrors, was still a real problem. We've seen the Schmidt camera go in two directions. One is the high focal ratio Schmidt. This is an example of that. It's a mid Schmidt Cassegrain, typically F10 and above. Now, you can add another combination onto the Schmidt camera, and you can put a corrector lens into the train, known as a Ross corrector, after Professor Ross, who invented it. What that does is, it's to describe it, it's a mirror, or rather a corrector lens to a mirror to another lens to an eyepiece. The advantage of the Ross corrector is that it meant that you could bring the image outside the telescope and you could put a film on it, or you could put a CCD or something like that on it. And I meant to bring one tonight, but I forgot it. For this type of instrument, the Ross corrector will reduce the focal ratio to about 5. And it produces quite a nice instrument. And I know a lot of people here have instruments of that type. The other type that we are not seeing commercially, but you can get made, are the low focal ratio cameras. And probably the most common one now is the Maksutov. It's a Maksutov. It's a Questar. And if you've got money to burn, you can buy one of them. I think it's a 4-inch, believe it or not. They're up at the $10,000 mark. They work just like a 4-inch. If you want to look through a 4-inch telescope, that's what they are. But they're highly corrected in terms of colour and spherical aberration and all the other aberrations. They have a little bit of spherical aberration left. And the other option is that you purpose build the telescope to get rid of the final aberrations by using non-spherical surfaces. Now this is all handmade, and the only people that would do it would be professional opticians or mad keying amateurs. There are mad keying amateurs that do that sort of thing, making their own photographic lenses. Probably the best telescope you could buy if you wanted to, I don't know if you can buy them because they're commercially made now, but probably the best design you could get for the ultimate corrected scope is the CIMAC. And the CIMAC is a combination of the lot. It has a Maksutov corrector lens, it has a spherical primary, it has a Cassegrain secondary mirror, it has a Ross corrector lens, and it has a field corrector lens near the eyepiece, and it has an eyepiece. And if you can keep all that aligned, it's quite a nice instrument. Sorry?
I think there's actually a couple of manufacturers, commercial manufacturers of spheric Cassegrains, Star Instruments and optical guidance systems.
Oh,
And they're starting to become popular in the US.
oh, they're CIMAC design.
Sorry?
Oh, they're CIMAC, are they?
No, they're spheric Cassegrains.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And I know Peter Ward from Advanced Telescopes in Sydney, who's got 10-inch, 50 grams worth.
Yeah.
But they're making them up to 20, 30-inch scopes.
Yeah,
Big money. So it's
they're handmade. That's why they're so expensive. They're handmade.
semi-professional sort of market, but definitely rich man's talk. But they're meant to be well the ultimate if you want to take photos.
The big advantage of the CIMAC is that it's all spherical surfaces. And if you're going to talk to an optician, making spherical surfaces is dead easy. Once you get away from spherical surfaces, you start getting into trouble. And that was what Schmidt was famous for. For years, he kept the secret of how to make his lens. And in fact, people actually had to work on him for a while to persuade him to write it down and put it in a place so that when he died, we could find out how he did it. But before he died, other people figured it out. Sorry?
Schmidt died in learning.
Did he? Probably trying to make his lenses. To make his lenses, he actually had to make up a former, put the glass on, and under vacuum, suck the glass into a shape, then he'd grind it, then he'd release the vacuum, then he would grind it on another tool, and then he'd put it on another tool and suck it down, and he actually had this process of bending his tools while he ground. I've seen it done in a variety of different ways, but it's a mess. Where do we go from here? Now, telescopes are obviously going in several directions. One is the multi-scopes, using a lot of electronics and adaptive optics. And Australia's really up on adaptive optics. The 2-degree field that attacks to this thing does that. And it's a way in which you can make the telescope adapt to the atmosphere and seeing conditions. The next one is small astrographs, and I put this one up because when we get around to building our observatory, that's the sort of instrument I think we should be looking at. But the big advantage with CCD technology and some of the new imaging technology that's coming along is that we can get an instrument like that and make it work like an instrument like that. It's quite. I just find it fascinating. I've got a 10-inch Schmidt-Cassegrain with an SB6 CCD, which is old technology these days, and I can quite routinely photograph 18th magnitude stars from my backyard, which is light polluted. And through the eyepiece, I can't even see 15 magnitude. So, and 20 years ago, to have said that an amateur could even see 16th magnitude would have been pushing it. And I quite routinely do photometry down to 17th magnitude. So it's amazing the technology. And that's just going further and further. And of course the final one is space-based technology. We all know what the Hubble telescope has done for us. They're going to put up a Hubble 2, if they can ever figure out what size it's going to be. The problem that they've got is that they can only put something up that will fit into the shuttle, and what they want to put in is bigger than the shuttle, and so they have a problem. It will be interesting to see if we ever go to lunar telescopes. There's been a number of cost-benefit analysis studies that show that the cost of operating a lunar telescope is actually probably cheaper than the cost of operating these sorts of instruments. And the other one is solar orbiting telescopes. We already have solar orbiting instruments that regularly show pictures of the sun, and we'll have, I'm sure they'll develop. Now, just to finish off, my wife's a member of an art studio, and I've been having a fight with them for a little while, because often I'll go to these art things and I just don't understand what it's all about, and I understand, well, what's the artistic content? And I've been trying to tell them that the telescopes and technology is a form of art, and they want to argue this. And I've said, well, look, under my definition, art is a combination of intellect, creativity and dexterity with a value that's recognised as some of its parts. I'd like to show you some, well, I regard as art forms. First of all, there's a chap standing there. It's an interesting instrument. You wouldn't want to be standing there while the telescope's swimming. I'll just let this thing run itself. So all the different creativity that's gone into these things, all different versions of the same basic type of instrument. Each person's got their own little flavour of what they want to put into it. That's our rental instrument. That's the one I reckon we'd like to have.
Yeah, no, you're bang on time. Are there any questions for Peter before we break for tea?
Well, one of the things I find fascinating is that nowadays telescope making the technology we're dying up. Well, we used to have telescope making group. And when I joined the society, the only way you could get an instrument of any size, you had to make it yourself. People wouldn't think of it these days.
It's called commercialisation. We buy them from America now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when you've got the sort of thing you've got, I mean, it's just amazing what you can do with it.
So you hinting that you want us to get a lead?
Would I suggest that?
Try to convince the rest of them.
That last one, that 16-inch, that
They're going to be telescopes now rather than commercial.
Yeah.
That's the difference. What's happening now. But, what was available 50, 40 years ago, what's available now. There's so much for the both sides.
well, there's no requirement to make the instrument. You make the instrument because it's fun to make, rather than because you need the instrument.
Here's what you can buy. You don't have to.
Yeah, that's what I meant. That's what I meant.
Yes,
I made instruments for years until I've made up enough money to go and buy my instrument. So the thing I actually play with is commercial instruments.
One doesn't make any more. Those times have gone.
And the thing is, it's not commercially feasible for somebody who knows how to do it to make telescopes to work. Because what they have to spend, what they have to charge, will be way above what people can buy for those things. And that in his backyard would make telescopes for a living, could he? I suppose some people do it.
And I think it's only a matter of time before someone starts producing telescopes with no eyepiece system, where the CCD is built into the instrument and the interfaces through the computer.
You said inside, what's the computer?
Well, there's a chap in South Australia. Can't think of it now. My memory's going on it. He's discovered all these bloody asteroids and variable stars and comets. I think he's discovered one comet. No. He's done that all from inside his house. He's got a telescope at the back. It's connected via a network. He's got a computer that drives the telescope. All he does is turn it on, and it just photographs a set of fields. So it just goes click, 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 and it just goes through it. And as it takes the photo, it automatically downloads the photo to the computer in the house. And he sits there and supervises comparing that photo with the one he took yesterday. The thing doesn't even require him to make the decision. It actually corrects the images, puts the two together, subtracts one from the other, and tells you if there's anything different. And if he points at it, it'll tell you what it is. Now, that's great, but there'll be people here who might argue that's not fantastic.
Well, tell them it disappeared.
But I mean, if that's what turns you on, that's great.
Okay, well I think we'll break for tea break now. I think and we'll reconvene here in 25 minutes, and the video will start after 10 minutes next door. And John, then I'll start going through my survey results.
I'm sorry, mine will just be gone. I wish we're getting them if they were.
Yes, well this slide is taken at a high school at a country town in Victoria. Does anybody know which one? Might be hard, probably old. It's got the name of a play. A play where there was a wedding breakfast. You know a wedding breakfast and a lot of boozed up people? Yeah. Dimboola, yeah. I heard for years there was a sundial in Dimboola, a fancy sundial, and I never got there. But when I was in Adelaide, I asked John Ward to do Australian sundials, and he told me about it. It was at the school. So on the way back from Nassau, we came through Dimboola deliberately, stayed overnight in the place, and then the next morning I went round to the school, and there it was. And the school is here. So you can see the shadows coming through here like that, indicating the sun sort of up here. The sun rose sort of around here. Now that means what? This direction will be north, because that's east, right? We all read. And there is your sundial, and it's quite an unusual sundial. As you can see, triangular, and the face there is facing south. Now, next slide.
What's the bit in the front there?
Bit in the front.
Yeah.
We'll go back one slide. What do you mean? No, not that far back.
The prominent bit is right in the front there. What's that?
Cannon.
That's a cannon. That's a cannon that happened to have in the ground, right? There was a military aspect to this place, right? Okay, next slide. And you can see that it's a memorial. Matron Olive Dorothy Paschke, killed off Sumatra. Might have been 12th of February, yes. That would have been those people fleeing Singapore, you know, after the fall of Singapore.
Well, probably on Baker Island.
Yeah, but those nurses that were machine gunned and only one survivor. She might have been one of those that didn't survive.
We saw that beach when we went over to see the eclipse over there.
Did you? Oh, yeah, yeah. Okay, next. Now, there's the interesting sundial. I won't tell you how many of these do exist. Somebody had an originality arrangement. And you've got, you see how it's an arm like so? That way. And then another piece across here. There's a handle there. You can see it's pretty dark, but there's a handle. And you get that long, you can move it round. Now, the dial, you see the numbers are around here, the hours are around like so. Now, the sun's shining across this way. There's a hole here and a hole there, two holes. And there's a line on this arm going down the middle, such that when they're lined up, light from the sun goes through one hole and it'll give a little point of light and you get it on that centre line. So it shows that they're aligned. And next slide. Here's the instructions. Using the thumb screw, set the fine wire under the glass on the indicator arm to the correct date. So it's got a whole series of dates for the year. Now, why would you be doing that? Anybody tell me why you do that? You have to do that in advance.
Yeah, because
You set it for the date of the year, because what changes over the year?
time.
The equation of time, right? The equation of time. There's so many minutes, like minutes ahead, minutes behind. So that's built into it. So you set it on the date, and that makes a correction for equation of time. Right, next bit, using the hand. No, not the next using the hand to rotate the cross until the array of light from hole in one upright shines centrally over the middle line on the other upright. And then you read the time as shown by the white V on the indicator arm. One small division equals 2 minutes. Well, that's not a bad accuracy. Okay, next. picture. Now there we are. That's my wife in the background. She's pointing out with her fingers, the 2 points. You see the point of light? See the point of light? Right. Now you have to have that to read. Anybody know why? Why do you have to have 2 points of light? Why do you have 2 holes? Because the sun, of course, is low in winter and it's high in summer. So you've got to make revision. That is the bane of equatorial sundials. Is the fact that the equatorial sundial in the winter time, summer can only be read in the summer months because the sun's too low. So what it does allows for that. So of course the light, the little pattern of light will move up or down according to the season. But nevertheless, the time is the time. You can read this, use this sundial any time of the year. Okay, next. And there's the scale. See, that's 11 o'clock, 10 o'clock, see 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11, 9, 10, 11, midday's round here, and that'll be on that side, on the side, not the top where you normally see a 12, it'll be on the extreme left, on the left of the circle. This is the device, you see, that you make a correction for equation of time. This thing moves in relation to that, and you make an allowance, that's the allowance. And there the V, you see, comes through and you read off the time. That's that. We're at Dimboola.
Oh, this is in Dimboola.
This, the whole thing's in Dimboola. We've been talking about it. I didn't think I was quite.
I thought you were on a different one.
This is the same sundial we've been talking about for the last 6 slides. Is everybody with me on that? Okay. Now there's one other sundial, if I can move, we'll talk about. Next slide, Jacob. I went to Tonga for a couple of weeks in early July, and we're not expecting to see a sundial, but there was one there. And it's from the Japanese, a present to the Tongan government from the Japanese government, and there it sits, there it's on that, there's the plate there, and it sits there right on the beachfront there in Lowe. Okay, next. And there's a quote here from a Japanese man's made the quote. When a person courageously calls out for something that touches the core of human nature, infinite waves of response will be produced in the ocean of the hearts of humankind. That's not a bad quote. Maybe it's a translation into English from the Japanese.
Sounds like video instructions.
Yeah. I didn't catch that. Right. Okay. Next. Now there's the sundial, and you'd see the shadow telling me I shouldn't have told you what time of the year I went to Tonga, because you could read it off for me, couldn't you? You could read it off. You can see the time was pretty close to the solstice. Pretty close to solstice, you see, because at the extremity there, at the solstice in June 22nd, you see, you get up there. And of course, the other extreme, the summer solstice, down here. And of course, the midday situation down here, down. And the line for the equinox is there. So you can read the time. And you virtually get time and date, don't you, reading this sort of sundial? You get the time of day, and judging by the position up or down this dial, you get the date as well. So interesting device. And donations to the Japanese government. And that's it, thanks. Thank you. Oh, sorry, there's another one. Well, just for a second. Oh, I forgot about this one. This is down. Anybody seen this one? It's on the beachfront, not far from, not that far away. Down past Geelong. You've been to Torquay? And well, you have a look on the beachfront there at Torquay, and this sundial is there. You see this is the analemma? Yeah. That's my daughter standing on a position. You stand on a position depending on the time of the year. The dates, of course, are all around the extremities here. And you cast a shadow, and you see the shadow off towards the hour line. Next, Jacob.
You need to get back.
Go back one.
Oh no, you've gone. I don't know what you did, Jacob. You jumped 2 slides. There we are. Right. There we are. the shadow goes across. Do you see these are the outlines that mark them, look like trees, don't they? But you can mark out your shadow from that and the direction. And a local artist made it up. So it's quite a picturesque sort of arrangement. Is that which way? I think there were 3 slides, Jacob.
No, there's one, just not this. It's the second last.
Right. That's the last one.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Right. That's it. Sorry. Okay.
Okay, Bob, do you want to do this?
Okay, the usual planets for the next month. Most of us know that Saturn and Jupiter are slowly rising into the near midnight sky. For those who want to persevere, it's still about 4 AM, and that's in a dark sky, okay? Towards the end of the viewing period, late November, it will be a less dark sky because we are moving into summer. The days are getting warmer, thank goodness. And there's, on Sky, on the handout, there's a bit of a thing showing Saturn close to the Moon and Jupiter also around the 27th, 28th, 29th. But we're all looking forward to Saturn, myself particularly, coming into the somewhat earlier hours before 4 AM. Morning sky now has Mars a little bit higher, but you're not going to get Mars until late this month. And again, not quite a totally dark sky, but 2/3 dark. And again, as you move further into the month, the sun is rising, so it lessens. Venus is making an entrance mid-November into the morning sky as well. I know you can still see it in the evening sky, but it's descending. And I don't need to tell you about it in the evening sky. We've all been seeing it for a long time because it was at a very high point. So something might be happening with Venus and Mars around the 26th of November. We should all rearrange our lives for that event. Okay. And lastly, a bit of a fun thing. This is what you don't look at. That's the sun. Mercury is moving right into the sun's glare. As of about tonight, it's sort of there. But the Mercury is actually occulted by the sun on the 14th of November. But we won't see it, will we, unless you're mad enough to look at it. And Venus is it's still in the evening sky, but it will make a movement also into the evenings. It's back to the evening morning sky for Venus, I beg your pardon, and Mercury's doing the reverse. It's going into the evening sky, but it'll be a while. Late November, if anything, for Mercury back into the morning sky. So they're doing a reverse, but the main point is that don't go for the occultation of Mercury by the sun on November the 14th. Anyway, enough of that rubbish. Okay. Now, I'm really not going to spend much time on this stuff because it's on Sky, on the handout. In the northwestern sky, there's absolute stacks of messier objects. Every object there is pretty easy. I've marked some exceptions on my handout. But all that stuff is easy. For those who have computer telescopes, I've put alignment star names on them when I use them. And I mean, the computer telescopes are coming. People will want to know if that particular star is Altair. By the way, there's no planets in the evening sky at the moment. except for, Saturn and Jupiter much earlier. I mean, much later in the night, early morning. But the alignment stars are there for people who want to use them. Good luck to whoever can see Andromeda in a nice dark sky. It probably won't happen this year with the lights above Frankston. There's lots of nice objects there, but we don't get to see them because it's too low. Anyway, enough of that. Okay. I forgot to mention in the previous one that the Milky Way is now bottoming. Okay, and in the south, this is looking due east, but in the south part of the sky, the Milky Way right across the horizon is now bottoming. Okay, so you've got to start looking at other things, and predominantly it's galaxy country with this stuff above here, and tonight I want to concentrate on the very long constellation of Eridanus, which has a lot of lovely, easy multiple stars and a few galaxies. And the galaxies are easy. There are other galaxies which are hard, and us experienced amateurs know about those. But again, alignment stars, if you want to use them, but I'm going to concentrate very soon on that constellation. And the stuff is easy. Rightio. And there's only one there anyway. Just to give you an overview, now this is all of Eridanus, and it's all the stars in it are bright stars, and it spans a very large region of the sky. There's Beta Orionis, or commonly Rigel. Okay, that's Rigel of Orion, and whacking right across the sky, you go down to Achernar there. At the moment, it's got. I'll show you what I mean just by using a different function. Whoops. Okay, so there's your Rigel, Achernar. There are a few other names. There's Key. Next to Key, that red star is a Micron 2 Eridani. That is a brilliant multiple star. I'll show you that in a second. There is another lovely one, Tor. It's a red one, Tor Eridani. That is stunning. Most of you can get on to Theta Eridani there, or Achernar. I'm not going to show that one, but there's a blue star there, which is a double, and any telescope will bring it up. Every star that I'm mentioning is easy. You can see them with the eye, there's no problems. The one that is off the chart is 32 Eridani. It's on sky for the month, and that is a little bit hard, but you can't have everything. Okay, another one that's really lovely, well, I'll use the other one. I'll just do something else now. Okay. Rightio, so there's about 4 doubles that are lovely. Now, for those with small telescopes, stick to the multiple stars, and 2 very easy objects to go for in terms of galaxies and planetary nebulas. One is that planetary there, and on the handout, if you haven't got a computer scope, just put your finder in that area where you've got 2 bright stars and make that the 3rd star making up the isosceles triangle. And then move your telescope slowly to find that one. That's a magnitude 10 planetary, and it's a classic one, and it should be easy. An extremely easy galaxy is that one there. Same procedure, get on to Theta Eridani. Those 2 are bright, so just put your finder, making that the 3rd point of the scalene triangle. We all know what a scalene triangle is, don't we? Don't answer that. Okay, so, use your finder to make that the 3rd point, and that galaxy is easy. It's claimed that you can see that galaxy in an 80mm finder, so you can see it in binoculars, 80mm. Okay, one more galaxy I'll show you. Well, there's only one I'll actually show you, that's this one up here. And it's the same scenario. Those 2 stars there are quite bright, and that galaxy 1332 is a cigar shape, and it should be even easy in a small telescope. Right, now to the fun. And I'll finish up on this one. Now, this is all in Eridanus, the whole lot. Okay? And note the modesty. Note the modesty. I'll leave it up there so you can read it. Take it in slowly. Note the modesty. I'm repeating myself, but we all do that when we get excited.
No, I was for you next week. I thought your name was Bob Heale.
Okay, here we go. Oh, what was the one I did then? Oh, I don't know. Okay, this is, look, I'll go back to that first bit. This is the pair, Omicron 1, Omicron 2 Eridanians. It's on the charts. That's the one I'm going to home in on, Omicron 2. It's a lovely multiple. Here we go. Okay, nothing much more with binoculars. There's the pink one there. Okay, large binoculars brings up, firstly, that one, that white star is the closest, I beg your pardon, the brightest white dwarf in the entire sky, okay? Its primary companion is the brightest white dwarf, so it's worth looking at. And it's obviously got some other ones going there. I believe that red one is also a dwarf star. Okay, and finally, when we hit it with a small telescope, it all breaks up. So there's the white dwarf again, and that's a magnitude 11 one, and that's another magnitude 9 companion. That's a true multiple. They are physically associated with each other in space. Okay. I'm going to ignore that top bit. Right. This next one is 32 Eridani. This is a bit difficult, so I'll be quick with it. It's got a lovely companion, but it's very close. You can just see, that's one of the fainter companions. That's about magnitude 11, okay? But the companion that's very close to it and very bright is a lovely blue-green. It's not showing the green terribly well, but that is a very close, bright companion there. You might have to hit it with a lot of magnification, but it's got another one there that's easy. Okay, that's 32 Eridani. Okay, P Eridani. This is very close to Achernar. Okay, now there's Achernar. Okay, and that's P. It's so close to it, it's not funny. Little brighter there. It's quite a nice bright field. That's the multiple we're going to split. That's probably the. I don't think this is a true double, actually. This might be a visual one. It's the only one though. And a little bit more, and even more there. I think the best view is that one there. So that's probably. It's basically an orange double star, and I think that's the secondary. One thing about double stars is, or multiples, is that extracting the information and putting it into a computer program is difficult. You've got no idea the number of sources I've had to go to, even following the internet. It's not easy. The programming is easy because I've done that. The information is hard to extract. Okay. Tor is brilliant, and that's the last one, I think, on the multiples. Now, Tor is, as I described, it's in the middle of the constellation, and it's that pinky one there between two bright stars, and it's near a galaxy that I'll show you later. Anyway, you've got it on the chart, that's okay. Okay, there you go. It's claimed in the references that it's got 3 companions that are almost in a straight line. Well, how's that verification? Okay, that's a binocular view, and you might just get that with that star. And if you hit it with a small telescope, you'll find that it's got 2 more companions that I got from another source. That's a doozy. Now that exists. That's Tor 4 Eridani. They're quite known. That's about magnitude 9. I think they're magnitude 10 or 11. Okay? Tor 4. Not many multiples would beat that one. And I think that's another red wolf, I'm not sure. Okay. We've got 2 to go, and it's only those the 2 planetary and cigar show. Okay. Right. There's a little tiny bit of aerodamus. I'll just blow it up a little bit. It's a bit better. Oh, no. Go back to the other one. On the chart, you've got a bit of a hook, and the planetary that we're looking for basically forms an isosceles triangle between those 2 stars, and so it's about there. You'll see that verified in a second. Okay, there's that double, and there's that red star, so we're hoping that the planetary turns up somewhere there. It better, or else I'm going to be ridiculed, aren't I? Okay, here we go. There's the picky one, and there's the other one off, and there's a planetary that you can get. We all love that planetary. I'll leave it at that. If I go any further, it just blows it up and we lose the rest of the stars, because it just looks like in the telescope a circular pale disc. That's all there is to it. Okay, lucky last, and this is an easy galaxy, and it should look exactly like you see it. Cigar-shaped 1332. And, okay, this is the one that's got the multiple star tour there, okay? And it's between these 2 bright stars, and it's somewhere about there. So here we go, excitement plus. Okay, same 2 stars. There it is, the cigar-shaped 1332. If you whack your finder on those 2 stars, it's smack in the middle. You can't miss it. And it's magnitude 9 or 9.5. I mean, it shouldn't be. It might be 10, but it should be easy. And it's small, and it should be quite bright, and it's cigar-shaped. And that's the correct orientation too. And if you hit it with a small telescope, the other stars disappear while one of them stays there. So that's it, okay? 1332. Go for it. And I am finished.
Back to the survey before John goes on a little bit later. It's always a good one. Is it really effective? It goes from totally out of touch at one side to a couple of people didn't understand the question and abstained, to the majority being spot on or gets it right most of the time or satisfactory. So the interesting thing about committees is they change over time, and the value of a committee is more from the new ideas that actually come into the committee over time. So if anyone here cares to nominate for the committee for next month, please do so. New faces, new ideas are what it's all about. Now, another interesting question came up was what to do if the society's running costs increased. And for example, this year the insurance was due to double when it came in, but an alternative option came in actually via the local Shire Council, which precluded that. And but not specifically on insurance, more a hypothetical question: if the running costs of the society, the day-to-day running costs, like the hire of this venue here, ever increase, what should we do? And there were a few options there, and the most popular one seemed to be to increase the membership fees to cater for it. Actually go out, and the next biggest one was actually go out and try and seek some external income. In other words, go and solicit extra viewing nights from schools and perhaps other things of that nature. Cut costs, in other words, give up venues like this and go to somewhere a little bit lower class, downgrade a bit. Amalgamate with other clubs was also one of the options. No one suggested winding up the club, which is very, very good to actually hear, and one or two people actually found the question a bit hard to answer. Or understand, yeah, didn't understand the question. The last one to show of these type of ones was what about a name change for the society? It's been a chestnut for the 12 years that I've been here in the society, that always comes up every now and again. And it varied from if he changes I leave, to I abstain from this question, to go for it I trust you. So no one actually trusted a committee at any stage down the track to change it to be whatever we wanted it to be, or they wanted it to be. The most popular one was I'd like to see the options first. And I think maybe there was a bit of a fear there of being like the situation with the referendum on the different types of republic. You're offered a republic with blue spots and yellow stripes, and it's either that or no change. And a similar sort of thing would occur with a name change as well. Like you might only be given 3 options to choose from, or 2 options to choose from, and you might like to see all those options first before you actually get there.
But if you only give them an option, they don't have any choice.
Well, yeah, that's what you don't want to do. Quite a significant number of people there actually aren't fussed either way, not an issue to them in the slightest. Now come the details, and there's no way you're going to be able to see these, so I'll put them up to show you that they do exist. I'm not sure if your eyesight is good enough, but I'll read out some of the key things. This is what do you enjoy most about being a member, and I've tried to classify each of the responses. These are the responses as written that came back. I've tried to classify them in some way and group them all together here. And the key things are sense of community. These are alphabetical order, by the way. There's no sort of priority as highest on the screen to the bottom. Sense of community, and the typical vein that's going through this is I enjoy the friendly, helpful atmosphere being in the society. Enjoy the get-togethers of the briars. Being able to actively do things with similarly minded people, and after all, we are all similarly minded. Common interest between members and learning more from experienced members. Doing useful observations. I was interested to see someone said being told when an aurora is going, so at least someone is interested in an aurora out there. Companionship and clearing away ageing cobwebs. So that's a different perspective again. In other words, keeping your mind active. It wasn't you, was it, Peter? And receiving the newsletter now that I can't get to monthly meetings. So it shows the importance of newsletter. That's what you enjoy the most. Then we asked what are the top strengths, and again I've classified them. People were asked for the top 3. Not everyone gave what we think of 2 or 3. So I put all the 1s up the top, all the 2s and all the 3s, and again trying to group them together. Interestingly, the thread amongst the top 3 strengths that people perceive is sense of community. In other words, a great number of them there, whether that's doing things out in the community externally or within the internal community of society. For example, at the top there, enthusiastic members and committee. The members and their knowledge. Does a great job with public school nights with just a few volunteers. Interesting varied school meetings, books and videos, and friendship. So in other words, these are all social aspects, so that's what the general consensus is, what most people are getting out of the society. Down under 2 here, there's also Briars actually then comes in as number 2, and again a strong sense of community here. So there's the Briars site, a family orientated club where appropriate, and an ideal meeting venue. So I'm not sure whether that, I assume that was meaning here at the school as opposed to actually at the Briars. And then number 3 here was a mixture of all different factors. including, someone said, good content, Scorpius, and interesting social gatherings and members' nights. Now, we also asked what are the top 3 things that we'd change in society, or you believe could change in society to make it better. Again, I apologise for the small writing here to fit it all on the page. Again, categorise 1, 2 and 3. And this is where you can't please everyone all the time. For example, here it says increase the variety of talks at meetings, and yet someone said less speakers and sessions at meetings. And another one said more variety of speakers at meetings. So no matter what committee does next year on this one, it's not going to win one way or the other. There are some interesting ones here. That toilets in the Briars get mentioned a couple of times in different spots, and I'm not sure if I've got them all together there. But I noticed the toilets have floated to the top when you sort alphabetically. There's some interesting ideas. An arrangement with the ASV to share the ASF Briars site, someone has suggested, and vice versa with Heathcote. We certainly haven't considered that, but that's an interesting idea. Regular swap needs. More people speaking. Someone has suggested a name change. Bit of a left field one here. Substantially increased membership fees have been suggested. Library available at other times other than during the meeting. Meet earlier in winter. So there's some good ideas coming out here for rumination over. Not enough time to socialise. Shorten the tea breaks, and we talked about that a little bit earlier. More social gatherings. And then down to the number 2 here, someone has suggested maybe charging for use of the Briars site, whereas at the moment they just get it as a part of their membership. Inform newer members of available resources, maybe putting together like a resources pack, potentially, for new members so that they can see at a glance without having to be retold. Maybe 6 months down the track as to what's available within society. Improving the library, I guess that means in terms of content. Increase the learning opportunities for newcomers, and that was one of the reasons for having all the smaller segments as well, to try and keep the interest and cover all sorts of different topics. More field trips, meet with other astro clubs, give speakers more time for subjects. So unfortunately again, some people want less time for subjects, some people are saying more time. Speakers should be reminded that not everyone is as passionate about their pet interest as they are. And for that reason, that's why we try and have parallel sessions so that you get a bit of variety, a bit of choice, so that if you're not particularly interested in one topic, you can go next door. Then number 3 here, another thing that you change, progress the Briars building site. Someone actually suggested do not build an observatory. So you have a whole spectrum of different views. Have the library also at the Briars site. Have an instrument making group, which Peter touched on earlier in his talk, but how that has changed with time. And someone was saying here why aren't we having as many dinners and lunches as what we used to do, socially wise. So that's what they'd suggest. And that will all get fed into the committee. I only have 2 more of these slides for you to endure. Then I asked, what would we do if we had $10,000 stuck in the bank? What would we spend it on? Again, the top 3 that the people came back with. At the top here, someone said a proper domed observatory for members. Another one said build club rooms in those toilets. Yeah, he's dropped down the list to second at the top, only because Briars floated to the top. Interestingly, of the 2,000, most of them are to do with the Briars in some way, buildings and facilities up there, was site improvements. Someone said finish off the observatory, a meeting room at the Briars, set up a large permanent scope at the Briars. Someone said don't start building more buildings, get computerisation up there. Buy a data projector, which is that type of thing at the top there. But that will probably come down the track. Someone wanted practical astrophotography at the Briars. In other words, an activity that could be done up there. And interestingly, we've obviously got a radio enthusiast here, set up a radio astronomy antenna at the Briars, which also has not been considered as yet, and probably quite within gowns are doing. Then number 2, better family facilities at the briars, such as toilets, things for children,
telescopes for
disabled access telescope in a classic dome building. So we have a proper dome building and now we've got a classic dome building. I assume it just means dome. Make the concrete slabs bigger. Another large telescope at the briars. Invest the money in a high interest account, which probably means 1% these days. These things up. Promote astronomy in the public domain, such as on Channel 31 on the TV. Do it jointly with the ASF, which again is interesting alternative views that I certainly haven't heard mentioned before. Make us self-sufficient and don't use members' stuff. I assume that's equipment. And we're certainly getting that way with the grants that we've had over the years for buying things such as this and other bits and pieces. More Lowe telescopes, external speakers, I assume that means more external speakers. Have a tracking mount Heale telescope in the observatory. Video camera photometer up there. Increase the library access, which I mentioned before. More up-to-date library books. And in fact, most of the books that we do buy through selling those astronomy books each year are the up-to-date ones that are available there. And then also, if you do have a burning desire for a particular book, just mention it to anyone on committee and they'll bring it up and it could get bought there and then within the month. Subscribe to astronomy magazines, which I assume is things like Sky and Space and astronomy. So in other words, via the library. And improving the web page. And the last one to go through was what other things do you wish to add on any aspect, and this is the ragtag of trying to catch any other ideas that are there. And again, they tend to get clustered in various categories. No clear pattern on these, but we have computer telescopes again up on the side. More promotion, so more people can find out about society, and I guess that's out in the community, maybe more through the newspapers and other things of that nature. Increasing fees again, which might mean cutting out members because they can't afford the fees, but overall you might make the same amount of money. Depends what you're driven by, whether you're driven to try and maximise your profit as an entity or whether or not you're trying to fill a need. Someone mentioned here, at least twice I've turned up at school nights to find it's been cancelled. I'm not on the internet yet, and indeed that's probably a valid point. That's the primary reason we get you to fill in one of these, and there could very well have been a lapse in procedure on that, in that if things have been cancelled. I'm not aware of any schools being cancelled, but if they have been cancelled due to lightning strikes and the schools actually disappeared or no one's turned up, then yes, potentially some people haven't been told. So that's something for the committee to look at. Libraries should be open before general meetings. Telescope Learning Days, Scope Day are excellent initiatives. Interesting one here, a little afraid to visit the Briars Observatory, as I may say something that would make me seem pretty foolish regarding general knowledge of astronomy that most ASF members may take for granted. That's something that I would call the humble factor, and is certainly a very, very valid point, particularly when you're new to the society, or even if you're not new, maybe your level of knowledge is such, particularly in specific areas, is such that you might feel a bit too humble to turn up. But we all have to start somewhere.
Yeah, you can't make, I mean, some of us, or most of us, are not sort of snobbish like some ASB members. You can't, if the person's inclined that way, there's nothing much we can do.
Well, maybe there is. I mean, that's something that for the next committee you actually have.
It's in their mind that they feel that way.
Yeah, but we'll see if we can reduce hurdles as much as we can.
Yeah, very.
I have trouble making up my mind at the meetings whether to listen to the speaker, the movie, or talk with the unofficial instrument mate group or instrument mate section. That's the parallel sessions that we do, and that's all. That's choice for you. You have one of three, so it's difficult to do. I think the small talks related to observing should not be left so late. So someone's saying there, have like these information sessions earlier, particularly ones around observing. In the warmer months, have the meetings at the Briars Visitor Centre. to allow observing. The problem with the Bryce Visitor Centre is it only fits 45, and we have had before now in these meetings, certainly back in 1999 we had I think 78 turn up to the meetings, and it was twice the number that we even physically fit in that building, which of course would be a bit of a problem if that we turned up. Issue the newsletter at meetings, and that has been tried in the past. In other words, hand out the next version of Scorpius now, but that means you've got to keep a good record of who's actually collected it, because one problem that we've had in the past is that we haven't kept track successfully of who's actually picked up their Scorpius, so we've had to send them all out again to everyone. Scorpius arrives after some of the events that are shown and scheduled on it, which is a valid point. The website has loads too much rubbish and get rid of advertising pages. That unfortunately is one of the joys of getting free web hosting. You can actually pay for it, which will get rid of the advertising, and that, again, that's an issue for the committee to actually have a look at, because yes, indeed, you do get advertising on free web hosts. And someone said here, nice website with lots of useful utilities and links, and again, showing about the advertising. So there is good feedback on the web there. Right, well that's everything I have so far from that, and all of that will feed into committee. I'll now throw over to John to give 5 minutes, if you can, before we close the meeting.
About SkyMap software, which is an award-winning British starchart software and one of the leading astronomical programs available. I've been using it for about 6 years now. Sorry? Screen's not on, thank you. Program can do quite a lot, so I'm going to give you a brief talk in 5 minutes, but we'll start off with, begin with, this is what the sky looks like earlier tonight. Outside here, actually here at the moment, you can put any location in the earth on there. It comes up, or initially comes with a number of locations, but as it's a text file, you can add any location as long as you've got the latitude and longitude. You can add any date as well. You can also zoom in and out as the program goes down to magnitude 16. So I'll just give an example here of what I can do.
Rotten up,
Yeah.
field?
Oh, yes, you can, yes. Yeah, it's colour-coded stars, yeah. To get the information on the stars, you just run the mouse over it, and like that, and get general information, or to get more detailed information, you just click the right hand mouse button and it comes in your dialog box like that with information, and you can do that with any object in the sky.
Well, even down the last magnitude.
Yep, even down to 16th magnitude, yeah. All that.
So is that actually with the Clarkross catalogue?
Yes, and a couple of guide star catalogues, yeah.
So how many stars is that?
I don't know off the top of my head, but obviously quite a few.
That's good.
In fact, you can download catalogues off the SkyMap website as well, and that overlays. I produced a map overlay that's now on the website showing the boundaries and numbers for the Herald Bograph Astro Atlas. So it's the Jupiter. You can see Jupiter, its moons there.
Presumably then you can get satellite event timings.
Not sure off the top of my head, but shows something in there with solar system objects. Great ephemeris. Let's do something. Simple. It's a fairly simple ephemeris that you can do, and you can do something like that, or obviously with a lot more detailed information for any solar system object. You can also copy it to the clipboard or save it as a text file. This is the next 10 days, the rise and set times for Jupiter from Mars. Also, Saturn has a nice good view as well.
So you're not sure whether you can print a table for like a satellite?
I don't think it does that. No, I don't think it's that big. Saturn square just indicates that it's surge objects. While the program doesn't have animation, what you can do is learn with manual animation like this. So just going to get 1 minute for sign up. Should do something. even if I was looking at Eridanus area or Fornax, which are adjacent constellations. This is some of the broader NGC galaxies as well as the leader and the variety of other catalogues that I've got on here as well. In this area I've made up to about half a dozen NGC galaxies in the field of human microscope. And just to show you what else you can do, you can also comments on here and show tracks for comets, and in fact I've produced comet charts and sent them out over the email, Society's email list in the past. And also similar charts for asteroids.
So those like little halos around the galaxies, are they indicating position angle and size?
Yeah, the smaller galaxies, if they're displayed like that, it indicates that they're too small to show the position angle, but you can get it in the animation. Where they're larger, such as is the correct size, shape and position angle. All the details on that galaxy.
Do you want to leave that CD in PC, John?
Well, actually, that's one of the programs that David Hughes been giving away CDs on. We can also and other catalogues as well. So there's a lot you can get off the website.
But it doesn't have Clara,
No. I mean, the data on it, you get updated comet and asteroid information off the website twice a month, so given time will be on there. You can,
so you can download human planet data.
Yep, there's also an email list, the same kind of thing as the Society's email list for SkyMap users on that. And Chris Marriott, the author, is in charge of that. And it's one don't like to into more detail at all, but it's just an introduction to it.
In fact, I suggested maybe we ask John to give 5 minutes every couple of meetings on various features, maybe show specific things like transits of planets across the sun and things of that nature. All right, we'll give them the latest of the hour. I'll close the meeting, and hopefully we'll see you all next month.
So you're not going to leave it in there, John?
No. I'm hoping to get upgrades to it. Say 6 months upgrade.
So what's it worth?
It's worth about 70 pounds. Yeah.
It's not a very